Hey, Slingers, do you have a strategy for debuting your book? We're going to talk to author Mary Keliikoa about how she's doing just that. So stick around. Hey, sometimes it's hard to know where to start when you're building and growing your indie author career, and that's why I have put together something just for you. Me and my partner Roland Denzel have created Indie Author Blueprint. So hop over to indieauthorblueprint.com, start learning about all the ways you can build and grow your own indie author career, and we'll be right there with you all the way. See you there, indieauthorblueprint.com.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Well, hello, all my, we'll just call you socially isolated author friends. This is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger. Thanks for tuning in for another week of the Word Slinger podcast. Lots of stuff going on this week. There's a whole bunch of big, interesting things happening. Well, I say that, and then I don't really have anything directly to report. But it's been kind of interesting over the past couple of weeks as things have developed internally at Draft to Digital, so that's been fun. If you haven't been paying attention, we've been doing these daily D2D spotlights. Eventually, it's going to go to a weekly format, but we've been building these daily spotlights that are interviews with industry influencers and insiders. And it's been really interesting to see, how people react to these things. They're very popular. They're very informative. If you haven't checked those out live, you can each day right now at noon Central. If you are on the Draft to Digital Facebook page, you'll see it. If you follow Draft to Digital on YouTube, if you go and subscribe on YouTube, you'll see it. So that's been a lot of fun. You can also go to d2dlive.com and you'll see a countdown. You can gain access to all the past episodes. Everything is there. So, in addition to that, I've been doing some live cast stuff quite a bit. Couple of things that are really fun and interesting that are more reader facing, because I'm trying to do more stuff that's aimed at readers. Like everything I do is aimed at authors right now. So I have been running my show, The Kevin Show, not in a consistent time slot yet, just kind of picking generally like a Tuesday or Wednesday, and generally like at 2 or 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. I'll probably pick a time and make that the slot for it, but it's kind of right now, everything's sort of up in the air because I've got a lot of stuff already on my schedule, and occasionally I have guests and they don't always have that slot open, so it's been a little bit all over the place, but consistently good. If you pop in there and check it out, there is a Facebook page now, The Kevin Show, that you can search for. And if you go to my YouTube channel, please subscribe, by the way, if you go to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to bulk up to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm at like a third of that right now. Once I hit that 1,000, I'm going to want 1 billion, so just be prepared. But if you go to youtube.com/Kevin Tomlinson, that's my personal YouTube channel, and I'm starting to add more content there, mostly these shows. So you can catch up on like the past, I think we're up to like 6 episodes now. The most recent one, I did a cover reveal for my newest Dan Kotler thriller. If you happen to like to read archaeological thrillers, this is going to be a good one. This is a really good, I say this about every book, but this is my best book. This is my absolute best. And it's going to be tough to top, actually, going forward from here. But if you go right now, you can pre-order that book for $2.99 on Amazon, and that's it's going to be pretty amazing. So help me out there, share that with friends and family. But I do the cover reveal in a Kevin Show live stream, and you weren't there for it probably, but that's okay. That's okay. You can catch up now and hear me talk about a little bit about the sort of the philosophy behind the cover design, and the things that I did there. So check that out. I also, this week, in the past couple of weeks, I've been participating in something that Jim Heskett has created, and it is what it's called, Story on the Spot. So if you are familiar with author Jim Heskett and his thrillers, it's me and him, but also Nick Thacker, good friend of the show, writing partner on occasion, and also partner on author email at authoremail.com. I don't want to say is R.A., and I don't know what name he uses. R.A. something. Man, I feel bad. I feel terrible about that, R.A. I can't remember the last name. That's terrible. Yell at me all you want. I'm sorry. But, there's basically 4 of us on this thing, and we what happens is Jim reads a story prompt from some news item he's found, and then the 3 of us go round robin on story ideas based on that prompt. And then the people watching can kind of vote on their favorites. So that's that, and it is a lot of fun. So there's things like that happening out there. It's really interesting to see how this sort of content is starting to evolve. The technology has gotten more accessible, and people are becoming more aware of it. That's what I think is really happening. Some of this stuff has been around for quite a while, but a lot of us were hesitant to try it out. It meant embracing some changes and things like that. But I have really taken to the live stream stuff. I'm really doing a lot of live streaming for D2D, for me personally, for with all kinds of friends online, and it's been vastly beneficial. So I'm going to see how it continues from here. Now, in today's episode, I am chatting with author Mary Keliikoa, and that is a Hawaiian name. Her husband is from Hawaii, and we're talking about how she is rolling out her new mystery, a new mystery novel. And one of the things I want to point out, because we kind of talk about this a little in the episode, but I wanted to call it out specifically because one of the things that I liked about this chat was this was one of her what I call thirds. Those, how you start like a third of a novel and you walk away from it. I think she actually completed the entire novel, but she had written this, she had pushed it around, trying to get some interest in it in the traditional world, and then kind of, shelved it for a while she went and pursued a career in, working in the legal field. And then she came back, polished it up, got a deal for it, and now she's rocking and rolling on a 3-book deal. So that's an interesting scenario. Now, she's going with a traditional house instead of self-publishing, and that's going to work perfect for her. What I like is she's still taking what I consider to be a more self-publishing approach to the marketing, and that comes from the fact that she's a business owner and has she's run a business for a while, knows the importance of marketing. That has to have helped. So I think this is an inspiring story and provides some tips on strategy as well. So if you're just starting out at this stuff, you haven't gotten your first book released, even if you do have some books released, maybe you don't have really a launch strategy in place. So this would be a good place to start. So I'm not going to keep you from it any longer. Well, let's hop right in. I hope you're enjoying this show and all the other content I'm producing. If you go check out kevintumlinson.com, you can also find it at wordslingerpodcast.com. If that's too hard, try authorontheroad.com. That's my newest URL that allows you to go directly to my website. And I also got historiccrimes.com, which is going to tie in with my thrillers. So stick around. I'm going to be talking about that stuff later, but use whatever URL is going to get you there and go check out my website. I've got a ton of stuff that I am into. A lot of it is aimed at helping authors. It is my author website aimed at my readers, but if you look up in that menu bar, it's crammed full of stuff that's actually aimed at helping authors. And you'll find, if you heard the ad spot at the beginning of this episode, Indie Author Blueprint is there, Author Email is there, Draft to Digital is there. So lots of stuff for you as an author. So go check that out. And then, of course, let's roll right into this interview with Mary Keliikoa and all about her debuting mystery novel. So see you on the other side. Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around through the intro, tuning in for this week's Word Slinger podcast. And today, I'm going to get this right, Mary. I promise. I promised you before we started, I'm going to get this right. Mary Keliikoa.
Very good.
Good. All right. See, I every now and then I pull it off. Okay. So Mary is the author of the P.I. Kelly Pruitt mystery series, debuting book number 1, coming May 12th, 2020. So as you listen to this, I'm going to try my best to make sure you hear it before it releases. So go pre-order it. But otherwise, just go buy the thing. What are you doing? Why are you just hanging around out there? But we're going to chat with Kelly today. So I'm sorry, Kelly. Not Kelly. Mary. I'm going to do that at least 3 times in this interview.
That's all right.
That's 1.
One down.
1 down. So welcome to the show, Mary. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I was kind of reading through your bio. You guys, you're very interesting, actually. I don't get a lot of folks who spend a significant amount of time on what we call the Big Island, but I assume you have a family connection there.
I do. My husband is actually Hawaiian.
Yeah.
So, and he's the oldest of 10, and he has several siblings that live on the Big Island, which is why we spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, that's fun. And I think a lot of people would probably be a little envious of that, but it's old hat for you, though, I'm sure.
We've come back and forth quite a bit for about 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
We tried to, in our younger years, we tried to get back home more often, but being young, raising kids and that sort of thing. So
yeah.
Spend more time there now.
Yeah. So now reading through your bio, it said that you spent the first 18 years of your adult life working around lawyers. That had to be. I've worked around attorneys and lawyers. I have the same thing, but I've worked around attorneys. Not always the most fun, but it can be very interesting. How did that influence things for you?
Well, definitely. I mean, I've been working in the legal, or I had been working in the legal field right out of high school. And I just always really was drawn to it. I like, that justice sort of thing and the fairness sort of thing, and breaking down a case and seeing the sides of everything, the observer. I'm very much an observer, so it was really fun to do that for a living for so long.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Yeah. And that was that sort of the springboard. It's interesting because you had a gap. Do you want to talk a little bit about like your first writing career and your current writing career? Like, why was there a gap?
Yeah. So, I wasn't one of those people that knew I wanted to write for a long time. It took me, I was a little bit of a late bloomer. And so I was in my late 20s when I decided to try my hand at writing my first novel.
Yeah.
And I really, I had high expectations. I was going to be Mary Higgins Clark Jr. I had this all planned out.
Yeah.
And I wrote for 8 years, and Derailed, which is being published, was actually the 4th book I ever wrote.
Okay.
But the dream started to feel a little bit hard. I wasn't getting an agent. I wasn't getting anything. And so my husband and I decided to do something different. We had always wanted to work together, so we started a company. So that's where all my creative energy went for about 15 years. I owned a couple of natural pet stores, and
okay.
I was really big into the, customer service and, retail hours are, especially when you're self-employed, or 12-hour days.
Right.
So my energy was gone for writing. Fast forward, I sold the company in 2015. I turned 50, and I was like, wonder what that book's doing over there on that shelf. So I pulled it out, and 2016 is when I really started diving into it, entered it into Pitch Wars, and still didn't get an agent. Still took a lot of more editing afterwards, but 4 years to that date, I'm going to be debuting. So
excellent. I mean, better late than never. But right. I don't even know that that's all that late, really. I mean, I've known authors who spent the first 50 full years of their life just trying to write a book. So
yeah, that's right. Very true. I mean, as long as you keep going, right? I mean, that's the only time you ever fail is when you back it up and just stop.
When you stop, right? Yeah. So so you had the book sitting there. So that's a big advantage, by the way. having the book already written when you start kind of polishing it and getting it back out there is, I think it's kind of handy.
It was a hot mess, but yes, it was. I mean, at least it was, it was there. When I entered it into that contest, I ended up having to add about 10,000 words to it to bring it up to the right word count and add different storylines. So it was really a rough draft.
Yeah.
When I left it behind, but it took several edits to get it to where it is for sure now.
Now, were all those edits purely you, or how are you getting it published? Who's publishing?
Camel Press, actually, or
Okay.
Epicenter Press, yeah, is my publisher.
Okay.
And my editor there did a whole nother set of edits, even after I thought it was ready to go. Even you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Right? They buy it and then like they say, "Oh, we want it," and here, go make a bunch more changes. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about that process. It's like the book isn't finished until it's actually in the reader's hand, it seems.
Exactly. Very true.
Yeah.
But you get good at it. I have to say, edits don't scare me like they used to, because
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I think I can handle that.
I think
So,
that was always a hang up for me early on, especially when I had my traditional contract. It bothered me a lot. Was there any sort of ego to overcome when you got that first round of edits?
well, yeah, probably. I'm human, right? So there's always going to be like, what? And especially how they're presented. Sometimes my editor would sometimes say, I just really don't like this part. And I'll be like, but why did you buy the book again? But you said you liked it, right?
Right.
So for a second, I have to go, okay, she's just trying to make it a better story. And at the end of the day, I have to say, I love all the edits that she suggested. And once I got out of my own way of that, I was able to really embrace them. And I really think the book is so much better for it. So,
Yeah. That's very encouraging. There are those of us who fear that, interference is going to just ruin the book.
yeah.
You're taking
Yeah.
away our baby.
Your baby. It is. And they are our babies, right? I mean, we put so much sweat and tears and sometimes blood into them. I mean, it's just, it's amazing, but it's hard.
Yeah.
But you just have to get out of your own way. If you want to be traditionally published, for sure. It's just part
Right.
of the game.
Were there any changes made by the editors that you just, I don't know, that hurt? The ones that hurt.
Well, originally Kelly Pruitt was very, very snarky. She kind of had a snark to her. And we pulled that back. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, but I really like that snark comment, because I have an inner snarky person in me. I'm kind of conservative and I'm very polite. I've like years in customer service, right? You don't always know what I'm thinking, right? But so that was hard because I saw myself a little bit in that Pruitt character, and I didn't want to lose that snark. But so that was painful. But we pulled her back, and I think it's better for it. So
Yeah, I think that probably makes it tougher when you see yourself in the character.
yeah.
If it's at all in any way, even semi-autobiographical, someone is asking you to change you now. So that's got to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not like I hunt down killers or, all of that, but, definitely her personality. I think a writer just does that, right? We write what we know on some levels, or at least we want to figure out. So.
Well, yeah. We got to draw from somewhere, right?
Exactly. At least in those first drafts, right? Then we can change it up.
So are you, so you wrote that draft and then it's been in edit. So you're polishing one that was already kind of around. Are you working on the next book? You said this is one of 3.
Yeah. So while I was waiting for book 1 to sell with my agent, because it took me a little while, about a year to sell through my agent. I got busy and wrote book 2, which sometimes is contrary to what people suggest, but I really believed at some point Kelly would see the world, and I wanted to be ready for book 2. So I actually had book 2 again in draft, and I actually that just went back to my publisher yesterday morning.
Yeah.
So book 2 is actually already back there, and I'm working on book 3 right now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The thing I would worry about, and maybe you've figured out a way to deal with this, and I'd be curious about this. You've written the first book, and you're getting edits and feedback and changes. So if you're writing the second book, wouldn't that impact things? Like I'd worry that I'd have to basically scrap what I'd written.
It was definitely a risk. I think you do take that risk on some level. but I had only drafted the second book. So I was ready to make everything very fluid as in that second round of edits based on the first round of edits. So, or the book one edit. So there are some things that I've had to change as I've gone, but it hasn't been a huge amount. So
Yeah.
it's worked okay.
Do you find it's getting easier now that you've been through the first book to kind of keep the character in line?
Yes, the character part. The plotting never gets easier.
Right.
The writing the book and making sure everything comes together and the red herrings, that just seems like it never gets easier.
Really?
Well, not yet. I'm waiting.
Not yet.
I'm
Yeah.
hopeful.
What is it do you think that you think is the difference there? Because characters are always what people I always hear people complain that the characterization is hard, that the plot was the easy part, and that making these characters come to life was the difficult part.
Yeah, I don't just, I think because I like the puzzle and I like a twist. So just having that really solid down is what I find the most difficult.
Yeah. Well, you're crafting mysteries, so there has to be that. Yeah, there has to be that puzzle there that has to be good enough to fool people, but still be solvable.
Right, exactly, and make sense. You don't want to send it
makes
out
sense.
of left field like, oh, how did so you have to play fair with the reader, right? You have to have
Right.
those red herrings in place. They have to directly relate to the case and send your PI off in a believable direction.
Right.
So it's a puzzle, and it's fun, but it can be very. I find it hard sometimes. I'm not one of those writers that can whip it out. I envy those people who just can turn over those books.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
not that person.
Well, how do you handle plotting? What do you use? Any special tools?
Well, I'm a pantser for the most part.
Same here. I am also a pantser.
Yeah, so I sit down with an idea and I always try to draft out the first chapter. I try to write the ending chapter so I know where I'm going.
Okay.
I spend a little bit of time writing the synopsis, the general idea of where I think it's going to go. And then I start writing. I think best on the page.
Yeah.
Once I'm in it, then I can start thinking, when you're in the shower, you do all your best thinking, right? So
Right.
I think my plots, I run to my office afterwards and I usually know 3 or 4 steps ahead of where I'm going. And that's about the extent of my plotting that I
Yeah.
have.
That's all. Other than writing the ending first, that's exactly how I write a book.
Yeah.
But
I think it's
I'm
kind of fun.
I think so. And I'm intrigued by that because I write thrillers, which have a mystery component. But now I've been kind of kicking around writing mysteries. But I was always kind of curious, like how other mystery writers do that. How they figure it out. Like I'll introduce things throughout the book, and it will influence how that book will end. So the idea of writing the ending first is really strange to me.
Well, it doesn't always stick. I will tell
Yeah.
you that. And the killer isn't always the same person. I've changed killers out several times on some things, but I can usually see the last scene and I usually know how I want the final confrontation to be. I just don't always, it's not always solid who will be in that final confrontation. I leave
Yeah.
that open. I like to be as surprised as the reader on some levels.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the fun of doing this, right? That's
Absolutely.
why I never could understand the people who meticulously plot.
Yeah.
Takes all the fun out of it.
Although they would argue that point because then they're not, sometimes they don't beat their head against the wall quite as hard as we do.
Yeah, I kind of want to see somebody do like a scientific study of the difference between the plotter and the pantser. I wonder if I could get funding for that.
I'd be really interested to read that article for sure.
Yeah, man, I would. If I'd volunteer as tribute, I'd go in and have them like scan my brain while I'm writing.
There you go.
Be totally up for that. So that's interesting. The ending first stuff is interesting to me. It confounds me. So you're as much of an enigma to me as the plotters, frankly. So what's your sort of writing process? Like, do you use any special software or do you write every day? Like, let's run it down. What's a typical writing day for Mary?
So I do write every day. I make it a habit. So I think part of that is the years of working in an office. I just had a routine. And so coming into my office clicks my brain a little bit into the work mode.
Yeah.
And in that, because I'm self-employed, I do get to work, up for a good stream of time from probably about 8 o'clock to about 11 or so. I usually spend my time writing.
Yeah.
And that's in my office. I never really stop writing, though. I'm always making my husband sit there and listen to my plot ideas, or, or talking about, what do you think if I murdered somebody this way? What do you think of this or that? Or I'm doing some research in connection with some of my people that I talk to for keeping things real. And yeah. So that's part of my process. And I do write every day, even Saturdays and Sundays. I have been trying to take Sundays off so that I can have some balance in my life, because I can get real hyper-focused if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
So, but basically every day.
I find that when I try to take those days off, they really haunt me. Like by the end of the day, I feel like I've done something wrong and should be punished.
Yeah, especially if you're a productive type, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, getting a few hundred pages on a word or words on a page is production, and that makes me feel like if I do nothing else in a day, I did that, and I'm happy.
Exactly. Yeah. And there have been those days where you get up, you roll out of bed, it's a terrible day.
Yeah.
And getting 100 words on the page is a feat.
It is.
So I'll take it.
Yeah, and even if you're not writing on your book, you can be writing, like for right now, while I'm doing all of this for book one, I'm doing blog posts and I'm doing, lots of different things, my newsletter. So as long as I'm productive, that's, to me, is what I like.
That's good marketing time. That's what a lot of authors don't think about. Like the authors are always so freaked out by marketing. How do you handle marketing?
Well, it's really hard to people. Yeah, come to podcasts, write to blogs. Now, I think it's hard. We're kind of trained, maybe as women especially, just not to toot our own horns. We don't want to be egotistical or boastful or whatever. So I find that the most challenging in marketing. I also have a thing about social media in the sense that I don't want to add to the noise. I think it's really noisy in social media. And I don't want to add to that. I want to have something important to say. And then, sometimes you wake up and you think, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say today. I just want to be a hermit, write my books today. And I really try to honor those days, because I think people know when you're not real and you want to be real, right? I don't want to be out there just to get you to buy my book. I want you to buy the book because you have some interest in P.I. Kelly Pruitt. And I will share parts of my life as I go, and I want to share that. But if I'm really not into it, I don't want to just pretend, just to get you to pay attention to me.
Right.
So I work hard. It's sometimes that's a balance act.
It is challenging. And one of the things I've had to come to is the realization that even though I don't think I have anything to say, my audience, my readers and subscribers will often disagree. Like I can share the most minuscule detail of whatever's going on in my life, and I will get 1,000 emails, thanking me for letting them know about this thing and how excited they are. So don't underestimate.
Well, and I guess too, feeling that is kind of universal. And so even saying it out into the void, I really just feel like doing nothing today.
Yeah.
And I think we all have that, especially right now with all the wildness going on.
Well, you're in this kind of unique position then, because you're already sort of marketing the work without the book actually existing yet, or at least not publicly. Do you find that challenging at all?
Not really, because of the you can pre-order now. I couldn't really do much before then. It was a little bit of a struggle before I had the book deal. I've been staying kind of connected and creating a connection with readers for even before the book deal happened, because I think because that's real, right? I don't want to just pop in now that I'd like you to buy. It's like that's
right.
I really have a thing about trying to stay authentic, and connect with people on a heart level, and that's kind of my thing.
How are you? This is interesting, by the way, because there are a lot of authors, I think, who listen. There are a lot of what I call will-be authors who listen to this show, who are just trying to learn how to do this, so how do you build an audience when you don't yet have the book? Like, are you talking about the process of writing in your blog posts, or what is it that you're sharing?
Yeah. So when I was blogging originally, I spent a lot of time just talking about what it meant to write and feeling some of the frustrations around it, feeling at crossroads several times,
Yeah.
and coming to the truth that I write because I love to write. And if
Right.
you took it all away, I would still show up in my office and I would still put the words on the page
Yeah.
because that's what I enjoy doing. And I think I talked a lot about that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I also travel and do that, and I love to share, you know, some of that because I think connecting out in other cultures and different areas of the world is a really fun thing to do as well. So I did
Yeah,
a
I
little.
agree. That's and you have a number of advantages that I think a lot of authors could be envious of and should try to replicate in some way. You know, the fact that you travel, the fact that you own a business, so you understand business. Because a lot of authors come at this and they don't quite understand that it is a business. Or
Yeah.
how do you perceive it? I don't want to make any assumptions.
Well, it's definitely a business,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think, I always try to approach every situation in a professional way and keep the emotion stuff out of it. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah.
That's probably what I bring from my business background. And also that feeling of always surrounding yourself with smart people. I think that's something I bring from the business background. Because there's a lot of people that know a whole lot more than I do, and you can really learn from them and also offer your own stuff up to them as well.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff. But I definitely see it as a business. And I think you have to approach it that way because the publisher certainly is,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
business to them, and you're a partner with them.
Right. And
So
that is an important fact. If you can start speaking the same language as the publisher, then
yeah,
the two of you are partners. If one of you thinks the other is entitled, or if one of you thinks they themselves are entitled, that's where things fall apart.
yeah. I think that's true in any relationship, really. I mean, it's
True.
just,
Yeah.
it always has to be a give and take.
So one of the things that I think this has come up a lot. I did a little writers summit a couple of weekends ago, and part of the discussion was about how I was sitting in with Joanna Penn. I don't know if you know her. She writes
Yeah.
under JF. Yeah. So she brought up the fact that she started writing under her initials, JF Penn,
Mhm.
because there was a sort of stigma on female writers writing in that genre, which in her case was paranormal thriller.
Yeah.
But I think the same thing is probably occasionally true of the mystery field, the mystery world. Although seems to me like there are a lot of female mystery writers.
There
You guys
is.
do great.
Yeah.
Was that ever anything you thought about or considered, or you know?
No,
Okay,
I never considered doing that. I mean, the only thing is sometimes the Keliikoa is a little difficult,
yeah,
and my maiden name is much easier. So I did think about that for about a second, and then I thought, no, this is who I am.
this
So
is who
I'm just
you
gonna
are.
go
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
I'm going to say I think it's great. I think keeping that name is fantastic because it stands out, right? Like one of the things when I'm consulting with authors, everyone always wants their cover to stand out or something. You don't
Right.
necessarily want your cover to quote stand out and be different, but if you have something like an interesting name, people will latch onto that.
They will. And actually, if you go to any of the online sites, I'm the only Keliikoa with a book out. So,
Exactly.
I don't have a lot of competition. You're not going to get confused.
There you go. It's like having an interesting brand name. You're sort of preloaded to be memorable.
That's right. I like it. I'll let my husband know. Hey, guess what?
Yeah, no, that's cool. So let's talk a little bit about the book itself because we've discussed everything around it, but we haven't discussed like the actual story. So what's the sort of background for this book, Derailed?
For what the book is about. Well, the elevator pitch kind of thing is that the PI, she has buried her father and her marriage in the same year,
Okay.
and she's a single mom, and she's taking on her first case to look into the death of a young accountant who was hit by a commuter train. And then she discovers that the victim was doing more than crunching numbers, and so she's now on a crash course with her family and with the killer to keep the truth hidden.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Intriguing.
Hmm.
That is interesting, and you're establishing the character. Why? So you said this is one of 3 books. Why only 3 books?
Well, that's what the publisher has
Okay,
asked, and so that's where we're at for the
but you're going to
moment.
change their mind. They're going to come back and say, "Look, we need at
Yes,
least 6 more books.
at least.
Here
At
is $1
least.
million."
Yes. Well, the nice thing about having a series character is really you can go on forever as long as somebody's listening, right? If
Yeah,
somebody's looking to buy it or to read it or whatever. But
yeah,
yeah, so I mean, Kelly could go on forever. She's only 32 in the book, so
yeah.
she's got lots of
And
time.
she's novel 32, meaning she could be
Yeah,
32 for the next 20 years
well,
if
she
if you
could.
really
Yes,
wanted. Yeah,
that's true. I like to move up. My tendency is to go up about 6 months in
yeah,
each book. So
yeah.
yeah, she got some time.
I've never established the actual age of my protagonist because I wanted to be free to continue writing even once I got to like decrepit status. So we'll just
Right.
see.
Yeah.
Uh, but then you get to a point where you're like, how much action and how many gunshot wounds can someone take?
We really do put our protags through the ringer, don't we?
Exactly. I don't envy them at all.
No, would
I
not want to.
figure at some point I'll wrap up the series like in the distant future, and I'll have my protagonist like, you know, stumbling around with a cane and aching from every old gunshot wound.
I've been reading some PI novels that are kind of like that because I've
Yeah.
been judging the Seamus Awards this year for the best PI novel, and so I've been reading lots and lots of PI novels, and it is kind of fun because I'm getting to see like 10th in series or and just watching that progression, and definitely these guys are aching from those gunshot wounds. It's been kind of funny
I
to
think
watch.
that's kind of a fun detail. Like I actually occasionally have my characters feel like a twinge from an old injury or something.
Yeah,
I just had a character's shoulder get knocked, popped out of socket, that sort of thing,
yeah,
from an old wound. So yeah, I think that's an interesting detail and makes it more accessible to the,
realistic.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh,
So,
I was feeling it.
uh, that said, though, I mean, you've established a character, and you clearly have ideas for the next 2 books. So I'm assuming you laid all the groundwork so that you could just continue on.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. How's
Absolutely.
so the next book? Are you able to reveal anything, or are you going to keep that close to your vest?
Well, book 2 is Denied. That's the second book, and it's going to explore a little bit more of family secrets. You
Okay.
see, you're going to get a few family secrets exposed in this book, and then the second one will give a little bit more. So, lots of dad
Interesting.
issues in the second book.
Okay. All right. So this isn't just her dealing with the cases. There's going to be a
No,
lot of personal story. Oh, that's
there
good.
is. Yeah.
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 See,
I
I
like
think, yeah, because when you see a lot of these in mystery series, especially it's always just about the case with maybe a smattering of some domestic stuff happening and almost to the side.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of who she is because of what she's living in her real life. She has a deaf daughter she's raising with an ex-husband who would like to keep her safe, and an
Right.
ex-mother-in-law who lives right next door. So, she's got a lot of stuff going on. So
Yeah, exactly. That's the way life is. So you
it
should
is.
include a little bit of that. So who were I think you mentioned one, but who are some of your influences?
Yeah, Mary Higgins Clark for sure. Sue
Yeah,
Grafton is
yeah,
probably one of my biggest for this particular series. I
yeah,
love J.A. Jance, Janet Ivanovich, Faye Kellerman. All of those, Patricia Cornwell. I've always been
yeah,
just drawn into all of that. And I couldn't really even pick one. I just love them all.
yeah.
So,
I know that's the challenge. So if
yeah.
someone every now and then someone asks me who my favorite author is, and you don't ask an author who their favorite author is because it's not a single word answer. It's a list.
It is. Oh yeah, you should see my bookcase and my stack of to be reads. I
Yeah,
can't pass a book that's like from an author I love. I'm like, oh well, it's going in the TBR stack right now.
right,
I'll
right.
get to it someday.
Someday will come. We'll all
Yeah.
be able to sit and it would just be nice, right? If we could all just stay home for a month.
Yes. Yeah. Or month or two. Yeah. Just hang out.
Right. So, well, look, unfortunately, we're at time, which snuck up on me. I looked down and noticed that we were coming up on the 30-minute mark. So, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your books, and especially this one coming out May 12th?
Yeah, well, if you go to my website, which is marykeliikoa.com, MaryKeliikoa.com, I have all the links, but you can ask for it at any of your local bookstores, or I'm online with all the large online retailers.
Excellent. And of
Yeah.
course, for all of you listening, you can find links to that website that she mentioned and anything else that's related at wordslingerpodcast.com, and just look for this episode. Mary, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I know you got books to write and businesses to run, so I appreciate you taking a minute.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you coming on. Everybody else, right now, you are hearing the Groovy Bridge music. You may dance in place at will, and if you stick around, I'm going to say something pithy and or funny on the other side of this music, so I will see you there. Take care. Well, here we are on the other side, and as promised, something pithy and or funny. I'll come up with it. Just give me a minute. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mary, and I hope you got something actionable and useful out of it. I know I did. There's a lot you can learn. I tend to approach everything from the perspective of the self-published author, because that's what I am. And even though I've had experience with the traditional world, the self-publishing part of my career has vastly outspanned that, and I learned so much about how this industry works and ways I can sort of leverage how it works. And I focus so much on it that I occasionally forget that there are other ways to look at this industry. So it's good to talk to people who are doing this coming at it from a different direction. It's also good to find bridges and common ground on that stuff. Because a lot of times it's almost like there's a divide there and it's us against them. And it's no such thing. Authors should always consider other authors to be compatriots, not competitors. And this sort of thing proves that. Not only is there a lot we can learn, but we can help each other grow in this and give ourselves more, we'll say, strength through unity. Because that's what happens a lot of the time. The reason there's a divide is the traditional publishing industry itself has a tendency to create that divide. Like, they're the ones who want it to be a competition. They're the ones who see it as a zero-sum game. And they take actions and do things that are clearly in their own interests and not in the interest of the authors or anyone else. So, not all traditional publishers do this. There are houses out there that are very good at what they do, care a great deal about their authors and the catalog that they're managing on their behalf. But, when you start seeing groups like Hachette and others, I mean, just as an example, the newest David Baldacci book that's upcoming, it's coming out in November. We are currently in May of 2020. It's coming out in November 2020. It has a very in-brand cover, except for the fact that it's just a solid color and not an image. The typography and everything is the same. And it says something along the lines of, cover to be revealed. And the title is like the newest, whatever series this is, I don't even remember, the newest David Baldacci book. That's the title, right? And so you're already asking his readers to buy just on the faith of his name, that's a valid, that's great. But now, look on over to the right of the page, and the price for this book, it's like the normal retail price, $27, and the Kindle pre-order price, $15. Think about that. The book isn't there. It's not finished, is what that means. The book is still being edited. Cover doesn't exist. And the publisher is asking roughly 3 times the price that Amazon will allow self-published authors to to put on their books and maintain more than a 35% cut of royalty. So there's a bit of an imbalance in the industry, and I don't particularly like that Amazon enforces these arbitrary rules on the self-published authors as if we are somehow, I don't know, we're lesser. That's the way it feels. But I also am not a big fan of the way the traditional publishers are doing this kind of stuff. Banking on the author's name is fine, but this this whole price the ebook. By the way, did I mention the print book, the paperback book that you can pre-order is less than $15. I don't remember what the price was, but it costs less than the ebook. So you can pre-order the Kindle edition for $15 off of a $27 price tag, or you can buy the print book for less money and have it shipped to you. So just makes you want to get all stabby. Anyway, but that's the conundrum of the indie publishing world. That's one of the things that's dictates kind of how we have to operate. Some interesting news this week coming out of Apple. They're actually opening up their own direct platform that's going to make it accessible for authors to, even if you own a PC instead of a Mac, you can go directly into their platform. That kind of cuts at Draft to Digital just a little, but it's fine. We actually think it's a good thing for there to be just a little more of this kind of stuff out there. Anything that might start taking cuts at the power that Amazon has over the industry is going to be a good thing. So we support it. And we hope people still consider us a great resource. Apple itself has been very good about, they like that we take care of the customer support, that we take care of onboarding, we help out a lot. So this move to allow people to go direct is probably just a response to people continuously asking for it. And I'm going to continue to distribute. I know this is a biased opinion, but I'm going to continue to distribute via Draft to Digital anyway, just as I do with Kobo and others, because I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to have to track sales. I don't want to have to track down anyone at Apple to solve a problem when I know I'm never going to get a hold of anybody. Have you looked at Apple support lately? Or over the past 20 years or so? It's all forums, and you can't get direct help for anything. So what am I going to do? Go to the Genius Bar and ask them to help me deal with a self-publishing problem? Anywho. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate you sticking in here, and I appreciate the support everyone is giving the show. Please feel free to share links to the show online. If you go to wordslingerpodcast.com, you can find every single episode that I have published. I'm thinking about a little change to how I handle the show's distribution in the near future. We'll see how that works out. Might even make it easier for you to find and share, which would be great. Make sure you write a review, rate and rank the show on Apple. It's not iTunes anymore, I don't think, but the Apple Store, wherever you're finding podcasts, anywhere you're finding podcasts. Leave me some reviews, and hop on over to kevintumlinson.com to find links to everything I'm doing. You can follow my YouTube channel from there. You can follow the show from there. You can find all the author-related stuff and some books. There just happens to be a book or two on the site for sale, so go check that out. And that's going to do it for this week's Wordslinger podcast. Thank you for tuning in. God bless each and every one of you, and I hope to see you all next time.
Wordslinger.